How do you harness your flow? How do you get into those intense moments in life where you get a lot done and sparks of insight come to you?
In my daily life, I actually honestly don't pursue flow. I don't start off the day saying, today I'm going to be in flow. I never have. I've always found that flow is more of an emergent state that is more likely to happen if I stick to my fundamentals. So again, I always come to flow and peak performance through the lens of health and well-being. So I know that if I do my morning routines of waking up at a particular early in the morning, if I do my breath and meditation practice, if I do I usually do a little bit of light movement, like a few yoga poses in the morning, just to get that early movement going. And then that really sets me up for doing my most creative work. So I always block off my mornings are my dedicated time for doing my most challenging creative work. All of these things I think really help me to experience more and more moments of flow. But I don't, I think just like happiness, it's less about the pursuit and it's more about creating the conditions around it for those states to arise.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that you do not pursue flow, that you actually pursue these foundations on a day-to-day basis. And when those go off, you know that your propensity towards flow is going to wane a little. What are we missing in this kind of game of peak performance and well-being? What are most of us missing? And what would you give me or any of our audience as kind of like that letter of wisdom of pay attention to this. This is what really matters.
I would probably point to a couple of things. One is peak performance and definitely health and well-being is not a hack. And so we need to just get away from that kind of mentality and instead get curious about what I mentioned in the beginning, which is get curious about the wisdom of our bodies and the awe-inspiring intelligence. I always get chills when I think about, and I'm a science geek, so when I think about the hundreds of thousands of chemical reactions that are happening seamlessly in all the cells of our bodies right now, even as we're having this conversation, that are making this conversation possible, what could be more beautiful? And so once you start to understand your physiology and the beauty of it, then how can you not take care of your physiology? How can you not tend to it in a different way? So I think that, get curious about your biology, try to understand the systems, and it's a beautiful, complex system that actually also helps you to understand the extended ecosystem that we're part of, right? So we are part of nature, we're not separate from it. So I think just bringing that kind of lens into peak performance and well-being is a good way to go. And when you do that, you start to notice that just like nature has its rhythms, our body has its rhythms. And so if I can consistently show up, that's why those routines and sort of the need to put in that effort and energy into the routines is a requirement. There's just no getting away from it. So there are no shortcuts. But the results, the ROI on that investment is huge. It's massive. It's transformative. And I think the other thing that I would probably say is, during flow, one of the characteristics of flow is that, you lose that sense of yourself, right? That self-transcendence. I would encourage folks to say, outside of my moments of flow, how can I be more deliberate about moving away from self-focus? So how can I, again, coming back to that whole notion of compassion, is how can I start to widen my perspective of what I want to do with the amount of energy that I have, this peak performance energy or this flow state that I'm creating? How can I widen my perspective on the goals that I want to reach so that it's not just feeding my personal goals, but how can I apply it through more of a service mindset and a concern for others? Yeah, I think that's probably the two things I would say.
If what you've heard on Flow Research Collective Radio has been helpful, please consider doing us a solid and leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening to this. Reviews help us connect to a wider audience so we can get these peak performance principles out to more people.